Greetings, beloved. I am so excited to be with you again today. Thank you for joining me for Center Her Power podcast. My guest today is so full of knowledge and joy and rhythm in the way that she speaks, and I know you're going to really enjoy all that she has to share with us. She is Thea Monyee. Thea Monyee is a licensed therapist and Oya priestess in the Ifa tradition, committed to creating healing opportunities to Black marginalized bodies through decolonization of joy, mental health, and pleasure. In addition to appearances on HBO, OWN, Fox Soul, and the Red Table Talks, she is the host of Shaping the Shift podcast, founder of Marley.io, and the Blacker the Brain, a mental health decolonizing campaign conversation and cohort, co-host of Dem Black Mamas, and creator of the Free Joy Experience. She currently serves as a contributor on a policy working group supporting the objectives of the 2021 U.S. COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force, and is the author of Murmurs of a Madwoman and Blood and, say it again for me, Thea.
Bahareke.
Bahareke.
You got it. Mm-hmm.
Recently, she has been featured in the New York Times and NPR discussing COVID-19, race, and mental health. Thea, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And I just want to also say I'm the co-creator of the Free Joy Experience with my good dear friend Ebony Janice Moore, who would also be a great guest for this amazing platform. So.
Oh, I would love it. You know, one of the things I find about you, first thing I want to ask you before I get into that, I want to talk about collaboration. Sure. and how it looks and how utilizing the feminine way of being in the world includes collaboration. And you seem to really be utilizing that, the whole idea. But the first thing I want for you to do for us, if you could, is to help us know a little bit more about you. On your website, you have you chose of all the things that you could choose to say about yourself. You chose 3 descriptors: Oya, artist, healer. Tell me, how did you come to those 3 descriptors in your walk in the world right now?
That's such a great question. Because anybody who's built a website knows they be trying to make you choose, like, this one or these 2. And I have a great relationship with GoDaddy, and we, talk a lot. I talk with my friends there about like how pivotal it was sitting down to do that website and deciding I'm not going to define myself any other way than what feels like inherently true to me, no matter how many slashes it is. The first one is the biggest. It's Oya. And in the Yoruba tradition, Oya is the Orisha, or the aspect of God that is over change, transformation. She's the first and the last breath. She's air. She's a warrior. She's the river Niger. She's so many things, but without her, nothing grows or evolves. And so carrying her energy through the world is something that has shifted my whole experience. I went from a people pleaser who, was afraid to express her needs and to, not center other people, to this woman who stands in power and, refuses to have any limits on what feels inherently true for me. And a lot of that is still being cultivated through my relationship and coming into a deeper understanding of myself as a representative of Oya energy in the world.
And, I know I asked you a long
it's
question,
okay.
but I really would love to stop here if we could put just a little comma in our conversation. Oya, I recently did a show on, the show wasn't actually on Ifa, but I'm really, really interested in Ifa. And I heard you say something about the role that Ifa and connecting to African religions plays in helping Black women to be liberated. So now I know you talked about freedom versus liberation. And since you started with Oya, I would really love to, if you could kind of talk about how connecting to these ancient spiritual practices
yeah.
is influencing us, because I can see the influence in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I go to my shrine every day. It's the first thing I do in the morning, and I sit at my altar with the divinities that work with me every day and the ancestors that work with me every day. Some are from, Egypt and ancient Kemet. Some are from Nigeria and just different parts of the world that we've been able to trace our heritage back. And I mean, I weep with joy. I weep with joy that I know them, that I'm in relationship with them, that I know their name, that I know that they know mine, because I cannot imagine being out in this world untethered and without that village, right? And that's how we've been, because we were cut off from it, right? It's almost like they want you to feel so isolated and alone, like you have to do everything on your own, when the truth is you have all these spiritual forces and guides and ancestors that are like, tag us in. This was always supposed to be a group project. We decided it was going to be a group project before you even got here. And we're here. We're still here to do our part. And it's like finding out you have this whole other half of family that you didn't even know existed, with all this power and ashe that they trust you to lead in this particular destiny and walk in life. I mean, that alone is incredible. And you go from feeling like, insignificant, your self-worth is attacked through capitalism, you're attacked through your race, you're attacked through your gender, to feeling like, oh, wait a minute, all these attacks are coming because they know how powerful I am, and my ancestors know, and my divinities know, but I don't know. And until I know, I'm that piece in the middle that has to, align so that these forces can begin to do what they came to this planet to do through me, right? And so all the questioning, all the doubting, all the worrying just starts to disappear. I can track my life to the moment that I was called to Ifa. And even at that time, I was like, I knew it had to be an Afro spiritual practice, because I wasn't fucking with nothing else. So I was like, it's going to have to be one of these joints. And I was like, and I don't want no colonizer energy in it at all. And so you go back, and Ifa is, is old, super old, super ancient. And on my dad's side of the family, 3 years after I became a practitioner in Ifa, we did our African ancestry and found out we are on that side Yoruba. So it was like, but it was the knowing before the knowing, right? This is part of why we need this practice, because we be knowing. Black women be knowing. But yes, we have bought into this white idea that we have to have evidence of our knowing, right? No, I know because I know. I know because of who I am. I know because of my lineage. I know because of who I am as a divine being. The idea that I have to prove that is actually a waste of my energy and designed to make me underestimate my own abilities. But we be knowing. I knew Ifa was the right path for me even before I knew or had a document that said, this is where your ancestors were from. I knew I had ancestors in ancient Kemet that I was deeply connected to even before a piece of paper came out. And so I think it's that knowing that ancient practices bring you back into that, trusting that knowing, trusting that inner self, that inner spirit, which is the opposite of what America and capitalism are teaching us. There's nothing that this country has created that is healthy for us.
Yes. I've done a DNA test, but I think you're right. In a different way than the DNA can really speak, because I know, I know things about myself. Like I know that, that I once had a life in Lemuria, or have ancestors from Lemuria. And my brother, who is now an ancestor, has shown me lives that we lived together. That where we were in Kemet, Atlantis, Lemuria.
Yes.
And it's like all these things coming together. And I say that, but I don't say that to deny my connection to West Africa, because I definitely feel that connection. Right.
Yeah.
It's just that
it's different lives. It's different streams of data that all feed into the canon that is now here as you.
exactly. So it's all of these things, and I love that you are able to bring together a spiritual reference point for therapy. When I was looking for therapists several years ago, right after my father passed away, I definitely wanted a therapist who could connect to me from a spiritual perspective.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I felt I was going through a spiritual awakening or a dark night of the soul or both.
Yes.
So the therapist I found was really good. She, however, was really connected to Catholicism, and at that time I was trying my best to hang on to Christianity. I kept trying.
We do give it a good shot.
Yes, and I still love the music, but
Absolutely. That used to move me a lot too.
Yes, and I was just listening to this song. This may be the last time, it may be the last time. I don't know, but so it's just I keep hearing the music, and I keep hearing. I love like the tone of voice that's present in songs like that spiritual, and I know that there's a connection to people beyond the shores of the Americas, and it really connects us back to Africa, just in where the voice is placed. So
just the frequency.
And what I'm really interested in is were you able, as you were studying,
you hear you can hear the wind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love to be outside near the water when the wind is blowing and when it's about to storm. I love the energy of and that's Oya's energy, right?
Oh yeah, it was blowing yesterday. Whenever that happens, I'm like, okay, y'all, this is the warning. Get it together. Here she comes, because whatever's not bolted down, she's about to lift up.
Yes,
and make you a little uncomfortable. And so I just pull out my sound bowls and start playing with the wind, and just ride it. So, but it's little things like that, right? Like it's that. We know what our great grandmothers knew, that the wind is blowing, some be on the lookout, something's about to change. When they used to read the clouds, or you just notice you're so in life, you're in love with life, you're in tune with life. So you notice it's not a coincidence when you see that bee or that beetle or that butterfly or that red bird or that bluebird. It's conversation. It's a conversation that nature's always having, except in our practices, in our African practices, you know how to jump into the conversation. You know how to be a part of it. You know how to not interrupt it. You know how to listen to it. You know how to interpret it.
Yeah, which is
little things like that.
Yeah, and that's a totally different concept to trying to control nature.
Right. Which is ignore it, or just be walking. If I'm walking and the wind is blowing like that, I'm gonna stop. I'm going to stop and be like, wait a minute, y'all. We can't just walk through this wind like this. We got to pay attention. You better take a deep breath and think about what you got to release, what you need to let go, what you need to come forward, because the work is here, whether you're ready for it or not.
Yes. Tell me, how long have you been a marriage and family therapist?
I was licensed in, I think, January of 2000. No, that's wrong. I got my degree in January of 2010. I finished my degree. And then I was licensed in October of 2014. So I started practicing as an intern in 2009. And then I've been practicing ever since.
How have you been able to integrate your connection to Oya and your therapy? What was that? Because I would imagine that if you were studying in a system that
I didn't know it then, though. I didn't know, the beautiful thing about like the work we do now, the Black or the Brain, and these different things that we've created is that, I only teach what I've lived. I only teach what I live. I will not teach what I don't know. You will not see me post on what I have not lived or what I don't know. I will bring in other experts for those things. But because I went through a colonized mental health education system, I now work to dismantle that, because I understand that there was always something about me. Maybe it's a child of the coast, maybe it's being Oya's child, that never quite liked to conform to things. So I think it impacted other people around me a little bit more than me, but still, you feel the pressure and the messaging to, cover your license, to, conform to this sort of white Western idea of therapy. I always knew that wasn't going to work for me in the long run. But I needed to get my license to be able to operate the way I wanted to. And in the meantime, I just found ways to do my own thing. For instance, I had clients when we didn't do what we would consider traditional therapy. We would read together. Like we would be reading because they were quiet or introverted. And then when they wanted to talk, they would talk, or we would come up with creative writing exercises. Or we did a lot of things that weren't traditional. We would go different places, and we would, things that they would consider to be risky. But these are Black kids, brown kids who move and need actual relationship, not a series of questions, right? They need to know you got some skin in the game. And so, that's how we rolled. And I loved it. I loved doing my work that way. I knew I wasn't going to stop. When I got to higher education, the pressure to conform was even greater. I had one supervisor say to me, well, we're therapists, not shaman. And I said, well, some of us are both.
Wow. And what did she say?
Nothing. And they could never say anything. They always had to tiptoe, or, 3 years later after I told them something, they're like, oh, there's a book out about what you were talking about. I mean, you needed the book. That's cool. But I told you 3 years ago, you could have already been on this, My clients would always leave my office with crystals smelling like incense, or coming in with their crystal bracelet. You could tell who were my clients. And my client list was extensive because for a while I was the only Black therapist, and I definitely was the only Afro spiritual therapist. So it was like, word spread. Then I had every marginalized category of student on campus. I even had white men. And I was like, how did you get here? How'd you find me?
Now, how did the white men come to you?
I'm telling you, it's because Black woman is mother of this earth. Like, everybody at some point wants to go home. Everybody at some point knows where to go, almost without even thinking about it, when they want that kind of love, that kind of care, the kind that's going to be Oshun, Yemaya, and Oya, right? The kind that can be all three, depending on what's needed. And so I remember I really loved working with this particular client, but I would be like, don't you find it interesting that you are sitting here, a white male with a Black woman, and you are, working on this healing, but you had to come home to get the healing that you need? Because you done been to a lot of white therapists. You done been to a lot of white programs, and here you are waiting for me to read you so that you can get your shit together. And he was like, that's exactly why I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't deny it.
I'm so glad that you were able to be open-hearted enough, because I have to tell you that, I've been like the only Black person in situations, and I felt like I just couldn't even talk about race because it was so emotional, and I felt like what I would come out with would not be loving. And how were you able to find that loving place in yourself?
I think by then I had found Ifa. Ifa gave me, and I found Oya before I found Ifa, honestly. I knew her name before I knew Ifa. And it gave me so much self-authorization that I was really on some who gonna check me. Like, if they are for me, who is against me? I just really was clear about, and that was a process, because in that space, I didn't want to be the angry Black woman or the woman who always brought up the fact that y'all's racist as fuck. Don't make me that person. I don't want to be that person. But at the same time, if I am here, I'm going to at least go on record and say what I see. And you can make a decision about what you want to do about that. And how I manage my clients in my office will be the measure of what I'm doing. And I was always booked. I was in high demand, not just as a therapist, but as a speaker on the campus to go around to do trainings. I stayed busy. And I felt that. I felt that too. I strained myself. I stretched myself because I knew I was the only one. I strained myself and I stretched myself. I do it today because finding a decolonized therapist is very hard. It's there's a lot of fear baked into you, into your grad program and into your licensing. And so I always tell people, you're not free unless you're not free on any job unless you're not afraid of being fired. Yes, the moment you're not afraid of being fired, you begin working the job, making the job work for you. But until then, you're working for the job and everything you do is to keep it. But once if you fire me, I'll still be good on any MLK Boulevard. Once you're not afraid of that, then you begin to move very differently.
Yes. I have a friend who is a professor of social work, and she got her PhD maybe about 10 years ago. And she said that she felt that one of the most significant things she could do was work with social work students, because a lot of them may not have even realized, whether they were Black or not, may not have realized they had a bias when they thought about people of color, especially children of color. And she said that if she felt that if she could help to shift the way they're thinking about the work, that would be one of the most impactful ways she could work. And she works in New York.
Several clients that were MFT, MSW students stressed the fuck out from their programs because they would be like, this don't feel right. And I said, it ain't right. What you want to do about it? What we going to do? Because they could feel themselves being taught to conform to a particular type or particular way of doing these work. Even though they started the work, these students went into this work because of what they witnessed themselves or experienced themselves in their community. They are the experts of their experience. They are the experts of their community, but they're going in there with professors who've never stepped foot in their communities, telling them what they should do to help their communities without asking them for their input. And they knew something was inherently wrong with that, but they were being stressed out by an educational system that was telling them, well, if you don't do it this way, you're not going to get your license and you're not going to graduate and you're not going to do X, Y, and Z. Again, if anybody can tell you you're not going to do this and you believe them, they already got you.
They already got you. Right.
I'm like, what? You ain't even paying good. All right. Bet. That'll just make me have to do better. You know what I'm saying? But don't act like making the system rich over here. That's not what's happening. That's
yes.
You can't. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Right. Tell me, what is decolonizing? Because this is really a term that I heard it in the food system and under food justice, but I didn't, because I'm an environmentalist. Well, I've worked at an environmental justice organization, so I've heard about decolonizing in the food system. What is decolonizing in therapy, and what does that look like? Decolonization. Specifically, when we look at the mental health field, decolonization is the recognition that the mental health system as we know it is designed to treat symptoms that were created by the perpetrators of violence and colonization. Meaning, we did not need this until we met y'all. You are the root cause of, and your violence and, your systems of racism, of injustice are the not just pervasive, causing pervasive symptoms in Black folks, in all folks. Because you've created systems that are inherently violent and inherently unwell. And so the idea is, decolonizing mental health is that, one, this brand of mental health is only functional within a system that intends to stay sick. And this brand focuses on the individual as opposed to using it as a litmus test to say, oh, wow, our society is sick and we need to shift our values. And so what it calls on is for people to return to practices that predate this colonial system so that they can tap into who they actually are and use spiritual practices, ritual practices, healing practices that align them with who they are. So much of our pain is we don't get to be who we came to this earth to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? Wow. That's
the number one mental health issue.
That's truth.
That's the number one mental health issue. The number one mental health issue is I can't be who I came to this earth to be. Because from the time I hit school, you were telling me who I had to be. And you hit me with it every day and every night. And then you hit me with it on television programs. And then you hit me with it on the radio. That is my stressor. not being able to be who I came here to be. And if we would let that happen, what we think of as mental health would disappear.
Yes. Wow. So if we were connected to our souls and connected to the earth and to our communities,
and absolutely,
then we wouldn't need
we would
mental health.
remember. We would remember. It's all a remembering, reattaching, right?
Right.
So then we would reaccess that inner canon, that inner DNA, that inner data, that inner hard drive, and be like, oh shit, that's why I came here. Oh yeah, I remember I have all these people. Oh, I remember I have these traditions. I remember how much I love the earth. I remember, right? All the things that have been programmed out of us. And instant healing. Healing doesn't have to take a lifetime. It really doesn't. In this shit, it could take a lifetime. Yeah. Because you're in a sick environment that's trying to convince you that you're the sick one and not the environment itself.
Right. How does one find a therapist who understands the not just colonialism, but patriarchy and some of the systems that we're functioning? Yes, all the things, all the systems that we're functioning under.
Over the past, I've been talking about this for a while now. And over the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, I've definitely seen a lot more resources pop up than we had before. I know here in LA, there's different organizations. Like I know Ayana Therapy is an app that helps you to find therapists that work for you by identity, right? So different identity markers, which is awesome. There's Roots, I think it's Roots of South LA is another organization that does a lot of decolonized work, Corazon Counseling, Socorre. And, think people are, some of it is decolonized, some of it is people of color facilitating, which is better than not people of color facilitating. Not all people of color are doing decolonized work.
That's the truth.
We got to be real clear about that.
Yes, that's really, I came across that because I was looking for a therapist and I would ask for a referral, and I spoke to the therapist, and after one conversation I felt like there's no way she can really help me. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah, all skin folk ain't kin folk, as they say, but I think they are kin folk, but they just not decolonized yet, So we have the Blacker the Brain, which is we're working on putting together a directory so we can start to get those resources together. But you have to find someone who is actively reprogramming their thinking around this, who is tapped into learning and decolonized training, which is there's not a lot of us out there doing it. There's more than there used to be, but it's really hard for me to just vouch for somebody because they're of color. I have to really know what is your mindset around this before I can vouch for them. So it can be hard. And in the meantime, I would say evaluate if therapy is what's required or if you just need a healing space, because a healing space can look like a lot of different things. I know I have a Reiki practitioner that she basically gives me an hour therapy talking before she starts the Reiki every time I go, right? For us, that's therapy too, and so if your healing practitioners, like your acupuncturists or different like that, are allowing you to express and talk, and you are feeling good with the body work, with the being able to process, that's awesome. And if maybe your person is within a spiritual community or tradition, it's varied, right? But if you find you do want the structure of therapy, but you want a decolonized model, then that takes a little bit more digging.
Yeah, you see, I don't.
And you can ask questions. Actually, you can ask questions. We had an actual training on this called "How to Choose a Therapist."
No, was this a training through Black of the Brain?
The Blacker the Brain. Yeah, we'll probably have to reoffer it, but it's in our Marley I.O. library for sure, though. But what it did was it gave tips for how to navigate that. But, it was the kind of questions you can ask people, what you can look for on their bios and on their write-ups and stuff like that, just so you have an idea of who you're dealing with, So we have done trainings like that in the past.
You make a very good point, and I want you to tell us about the Black of the Brain, too. Mm-hmm. I think, even though I went through some really traumatic situations a couple of years ago, and I think I'm processing, and I also feel that I could use another healing space, but I'm so glad you mentioned that maybe there's a different kind of healing space that could really work. So that's another option too.
Yeah, I mean, for you have to remember, decolonizing it means that we didn't think in a clinical mindset prior to this system, which has created a mental health system specifically to keep people well enough to work. Right? You have to remember
to work.
That. The point of this
it's not to thrive, it's just to work.
Right. To work. Basic levels of functioning, right? You don't ask anybody about their dreams or their, you can, but the baseline is, are you functioning in these areas of life? And functioning means, are you able to go to work? Point blank, right? So any other space that's trying to help you thrive is, therapeutic.
Yes.
I mean, before we had this, we had community, we had connection, we had connection to earth, connection to nature. We had creativity. And so you can still apply all these things in the interim. Now, some things, because of how sick this society is, have gotten to a point where they are life-threatening. And for those, you definitely, at that point, colonized or not, you need to look at those services so that you can get back to a baseline where you can get yourself, into a healthier space. But for majority of people, it's really about looking at what is my need and how else can I. Sometimes people just need permission to self-authorize what they want. Let me tell you, most of what people suffer from, again, is not being who they want to be, not doing what they want to do, and stifling it or hiding it or, avoiding it or not processing it. That's really, really in therapy, I feel like I just give people permission to create the life they want.
Permission. Yeah. What makes us think that we don't have permission?
We were bought and sold. I think being bought and sold, having to fight for basic rights, it's kind of like, even though you don't believe it's true, it seeps in, right? And so that self-authorizing sometimes comes from somebody next to you that you trust tapping you and say, hey, you're free, right? You're free. It's okay. You need sometimes that touch, that person to say that for you. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh God, I am free. I didn't realize it. I didn't know. I didn't see that. It's beautiful when you
There's
can
so many
do that
layers.
for each other.
Yeah. And yes, there's so many layers as I'm uncovering layers of conditioning and things that happened to me as a child that still influence how I behave in the world. And, it was really liberating when I heard you say that not just you, but there are others saying it too, but you said it so eloquently. There are systems in place that have created part of the ways that how I think about myself. So if my self-esteem is low, and I believe that people should speak to me negatively, even if I don't believe that consciously, but subconsciously, that really stems back to how we were spoken to when at the time when we were enslaved and the time after that, and I'm thinking about my mother's family, and I realized some things, that there was violence in her family, and I think back to how my mother's grandfather was actually enslaved, so he had a second family. He married a girl at 15, my great grandmother, and they had children. But he was a person who had been enslaved. So how might a person who had been enslaved and banned and hit, and how might a person raise children if they had been beaten and talked down to? How many generations does it take before we can get to a place where we don't feel like the way to talk to people we love is to berate them or curse them? How many generations does that take?
Yeah, because so that's our point, right? That's our point when we talk about decolonizing it, is that the mental health system, I'm going to focus on America because that's where we live. The mental health system in America is here to help you keep working. It's not here to help you be well. The evidence of that is if it wanted you to be well and it wanted you to be healthy, it would create a different environment. It would do things that were supportive of families, that were supportive of mothers, that were supportive of a living wage, that were supportive of the sick or the elderly, right? It would do things and create opportunities consistently, right? That created a well society. It's very easy. So I'll give you a perfect example. Let me put this into an example. Suicide rates are going up. So what they'll do is they'll start having all these places do suicide prevention work. But that's not what's causing suicide to go up. What's causing suicide to go up is a fucked up society. You're not supposed to look at the numbers going up and say, let's get to as many individuals as we can. You're supposed to say, what are we doing that is causing this many individuals to want to end their lives? What are we doing? What are we doing? Where is the we? Instead, it's on the individuals, and then it's on the practitioners, and then it's on the universities, and then it's on, but that's not the reality. The reality is that is evidence of our society being sick. Those numbers going up tell us we are not living right, period. There are countries that do not have these rates. There are countries that also have a more communal way of moving and operating and valuing their citizens. Why aren't there suicide rates up? Oh, because people feel valued, because people feel cared about, because people aren't being worked to death, because people aren't being stressed out, because people aren't being pumped to fear 24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day. So here's the thing. They peddle you full of their toxins, whether it's in the food or whether it's in the fear or whether it's in the television program, and then stress you the fuck out and then tell you to go get mental health so that you can go back to work. Do you understand how that don't make no sense? That don't make sense. And I need people to understand it doesn't make sense. What would make sense to me is to say, and this is why, I say this, the job that I'm at now, part-time, this is my last one-on-one therapy job. I don't do one-on-one therapy anymore because I got to go attack the beast, right? I got to say, no, she's not sick. You're sick. We're sick. This person's not sick. The whole society's sick. I got to constantly beat that drum because if not, I have people who come in with, talk about that self-esteem, thinking something's wrong with them because they can't thrive in a sick place. You shouldn't be able to thrive in a sick place. You should show some symptoms. And even those who you think are thriving are showing symptoms. Maybe not on Instagram, but they're showing them somewhere in their life. But because we've said if you accomplish X, Y, and Z, you must be well, it goes unnoticed, right? But, like James Baldwin said, if you're in a burning house, you're going to inhale the smoke. We're in a burning house. So to me, the problem, the reason that I, especially as a spiritualist, hold mental health to task the way I do is because I see it being used as an extension of the arm of white supremacy and capitalism. I see it. It's not that there aren't people in that field that do good work, but even those people who do good work in that field will tell you how tired they are of having to treat the same symptoms over and over again because you're spitting that person back out into a society that doesn't give a fuck. And if we don't get to a point where we decide to become a society that cares, then we can't just keep rushing people into mental health, acting like it's not an indicator that something much deeper is wrong.
How did you come to this purpose? You seem like someone who's driven by a sense of dedication and purpose and activism. How did you come to this place where you feel where you see the problem and you feel able to tackle such a huge societal shift? So how did you get there? Because so many people are just want to do something that brings them joy, or and I know you're centered around joy too, because I didn't even realize joy was like a that was like a social, like not really focusing on joy was a part of being suppressed and oppressed. Yeah. So how did you come to the place? Yeah. How did you come to know and know what your purpose was and know that you were a healer?
Ooh, that is such a that question has many answers. That question has many answers.
Whatever one you feel comfortable, whatever ones you feel
Whichever
comfortable
one,
sharing.
yeah. I'll just see which one pops up. So the healer part started very young because, my family had, some issues growing up, and I would try to fix them. And I needed help. I needed fixing, but I assumed the role of the fixer. And I think it inevitably then paved a path to wanting to help people. That's how you always say it, all the new people coming into the field. I just want to help people. That's what we all say. But really what we want is to be the thing that we didn't feel we had when we were a child. We want to be that safe space to go talk, process, feel better when our parents couldn't be that, when our teachers couldn't be that. We really want to give people what we didn't get. And I think for many years, unbeknownst to me, that was like what I was doing. I was showing up as the best therapist I could because that's the therapist I would have wanted to find me when I was going through the things I was going through in my family. At the same time, I got married young, and in that marriage, when it was falling apart, I found myself having to sort of abandon this goal of, loving this person and having them love me, and shift my goal to becoming love itself. I wanted to become the energy of love.
So while you were going through a divorce, you felt like you wanted to become love? Because that sounds like a spiritual awakening.
Yeah, it definitely was. At a certain point, I was reading all the books and learning all the things and the love languages and the this and the that, power, praying wife and blah, blah, blah. I was doing all the things. And then the more I read and the more I opened up, the more I was like, this goal is off. This goal is just about him or just about me. This goal should be about something bigger. And then I realized, I said, nobody should go through their life without feeling any love. I think that's got to be impossible. I think that's got to be impossible. And what I need to know for myself is that anybody who's come into contact with me, even if it's for 30 seconds, that they felt love. In order for me to do that, I have to transform my whole being to the frequency of love, right? I remember saying that very clearly around 2006.
That's a big job.
Oh, baby, it sent me down a path, right? So after that, you asked for it, right? So everything from that moment was about learning that, or coming into, okay, here's what it takes. It takes a lot of forgiveness. It takes a lot of non-judgment. It takes a lot of, all the tests that come with. We all say we want to do good work in the world. We want to be change makers. But baby, people don't be ready for the work. It means you want to go through so much in the human spectrum of experience, so that you can be deeper and empathize and have compassion. Now have compassion. Now show forgiveness. Now do this. And it's going to be over and over and over again. You're going to have to consistently show up as love, as joy, with compassion. When it shifted to joy, which is actually a higher frequency than love, when it shifted to joy through Oya, then in every circumstance, no matter how irritating or pissed off I was, no matter how difficult the topic, no matter whether it was race or whether it was whatever, I had to choose joy over and over and over and over and over again. And then I had to choose my joy, which I think that was the hardest piece.
Oh, that's hard to choose your own joy?
Yes. I could choose joy for others. I could choose the happy route, the route that will help people be happy. But when it came to my joy, and even in this moment, she keeps upping it. She keeps upping the game where I'm like, oh, you did that. You chose your joy. That's good. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. And it's liberating. I mean, I wish I could. It's so much. And each time it removes these limitations and these ideas about what is right and what is wrong and what is good and what is bad and what is moral and what is up and what is down and what is back and it just shatters all these what I thought were very clear definitions of good or bad, up or down. It shatters them each time because here she is telling me, and I know she would never lead me into anything harmful. Choose you. Choose what you want. Choose what you want. Trust yourself. Choose what you want. And it's just like this walk, right? So I think by the time I did that journey from I want to be loved to finding Oya to where we are now, finding my spiritual family was all the backing that I needed after that, to be like, I don't give a shit what nobody say. If we said it's this, it's this. And what I realize is everybody's out here creating their own world and their own reality. That's the reality. In my reality, this is some bullshit, what's being pulled. And I'm the person to call it out. And in my reality, I have everybody and all the things I need on board to make that happen. There's zero doubt. There's zero doubt about it, because everybody, you have to think the system that we're living in now is made up. It was a figment of somebody's imagination. Why should I have to live in their imagination? I can live in my own imagination. I think I trust myself to build a better world than I trust them. And if somebody don't want to live in the world I built, they don't have to either. They can build their own world. I'm fine with that too. I ain't coming over there to take over that either, right? So it's like really understanding we're master creators. You are living in a reality that either you are agreeing to participate in, that somebody else created, or you are creating yourself. I wanted to live in a reality I created myself. I work with people who want to create their own reality. I'm not a good person to work with if you are a person who just wants to, kind of lower your head and get by. I'm not good for that. I'm terrible with that. I'm great for people who want to get free, who are willing to work hard, who are willing to make the changes, who are willing to be obedient to spirit. I'm great for those people. But we do real change over here. It's not a game.
So you talk often about, you speak in the we. I'm thinking of the royal we, but I know that you work with a number of people. How do your concept of work to me seems really odd or oddly unique in a society that says you're the one. You gotta be you gotta do it yourself, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do it all yourself, self, only you gotta. And so you speak often very lovingly as we. And how did you get to the place where you are really utilizing feminine energy in creating ways to do what you need to do in a collective environment and still be you? That's what I wonder. How do you still be you as you're working in these collectives?
Yeah, what a wonderful question. That's a really wonderful question. Thank you for that. I'm just even sitting with it for a minute because you don't get asked that often. For me, the we is just the most accurate pronoun descriptor for what people ultimately see as the final product of this work that we're doing, right? So even if you hire Thea Monyee to come do a training, Sophia has helped with the email communication, Tamika has helped with the financial components, Olivia has helped with the graphics, right? So even if I'm the one doing the presentation, we did it. We facilitated this thing. And that's not even including the spiritual family that I tapped into and channeled from. When I talk about blood and Bahareke, I woke up for 30 days at 5 a.m. and sat with my ancestors and channeled that book. So I always say I co-authored that book. When we talked about the free joy experience, I co-do that with Ebony Janice Moore. There's no such thing as a me. There really isn't. Here's the thing. The point of the me is to be fully expressed so that it can contribute to the we. That's the point of the me. The point of, if I show up...
But say that one more time. I like that. Say that one more time.
Sure. I said the point of the me, the only point of a me, is so that it can be fully expressed, the fullest version of itself, for the betterment or to the benefit of the we.
Wow.
Right? So if I show up fully myself, I am, one, modeling that for everyone around me, who will then feel comfortable showing up as their self. So now if we're all showing up as our fullest self, the collective benefits. If I show up as less than me, as another version of me, I am modeling that. I am modeling limitation. I am modeling restriction. And then people coming in to work with me are going to do the same, because we are all just mirrors of each other. And so the best way to get a thriving we is to be the fullest me. So I have to be honest about what is my shadow, what is my light, what are my shortcomings. Listen, my team right now, it's a Virgo, a Capricorn, I'm a Leo, and another Leo.
Oh, you're a Leo?
And
I think you must be an August Leo.
I'm a July Leo.
July 30th. Okay, so am I.
Are you July Leo?
Yeah, July 26th.
Oh, yeah. One of my good friends is July 26th. Because we need balance. And for me as a fire sign, earth signs really balance me out. And they need my fire. So I need their earth. And so we work really well together. So we look astrologically at our teams and how they can work together and how they thread together. So, and that's very feminine. We move in seasons, which is very feminine. We move in seasonal cycles. So right now we're in fall. We're kind of taking inventory of our year, what we put out so far, harvesting, giving gratitude. And then we'll move into a winter where we don't produce as much. We really start dreaming a little bit in the fall and the winter about what we want to, dreaming, but more so meditating and channeling what we want. And we kind of fast during that time. Get rid of the waste. Think about what we can reevaluate, and then we come out to play again in the spring, and we go hard in the summer. I mean, we move with the seasons, but that's also the we, right? The we is earth and the elements. It's all we. I just don't know anything else but we. And I think when I can feel when I'm in the me, because I forget that I have access to the abundance of the we. And then I begin to try to brainstorm everything and figure it all out with all these limitations. So any tension that I feel in my body, I automatically know I have left the we, because the we never brings me any tension. Even if we have conflict, it is good conflict. It's going to lead us somewhere. But I just don't know how you view anything as not a we. It's very hard. It's not true. The me is not true. And the me is how we start to feel sad, lonely, and disconnected. And it's not to say that me, because that me needs the we to feel fully expressed and seen. They're interdependent.
Yeah. How do you get from me and feeling like you have to be you and be independent to this whole concept of we? I mean, yeah, I understand that we are all connected. I mean, I understand that theoretically, but how do you right. get from the place of feeling like it has to be you to existing right. in we?
You have to build trust. And not even trust in others. When you lack trust in others, it's because really you don't trust yourself. It's just a mirror. So when we be like, I don't trust people, what you done did to people, whether it's this lifetime or last lifetime, you feel a kind of way about some shit you done did, right? That ain't about people. That's about you. And then we use what people do, which they're just mirroring back to us, some stuff that's unfinished for us, right? From a previous cycle. They're just mirroring it back. And then we look like, see, people, you can't. So the deeper I trust myself, the deeper I trust others. And then if they say they're going to do it, they're going to do it. That's that. If they don't, they don't. That doesn't mean it was a mistake to trust them. That just means like maybe it didn't fit. No, it's not. It's not personal. Right? Mm-hmm. When people fall short or we get disappointed, it's not personal. It's just life. And so I think that trust piece is so important. But also I think my ancestors, like really starting by tapping into my ancestors, really made me understand that if you see me, you see Burial, you see Lillian, you see Gerald, you see Nathan, you see Sarah, you see Edna, you see Louise, you see Martin, you see all of them. You don't just see me. It's impossible to look at me and just see me. And then that's not even including the divinities. So now you see Oya, you see Osa Ogbe, right? You see, so it's like, you see all that when you look at me, you just don't know. You see all that. But we are. We are this is a we. I'm comprised of many things. You see Pedro Miguel, you see Inglewood, California, you see Severna Park, Maryland, you see all of that. All of that is named Thea Monyee or Yabumini Shaguni Fakemi in this lifetime. That's then one name for all the many parts. And that's, I mean, so I would say the trusting, and for me, building with my ancestors helped me to rebuild that trust.
Wow. Wow. That's really impactful. I'm going to have to really think on that. I know that you are a mother of 3. Is it right? You have three children. And you have a podcast where you are, entertaining concepts of mothering with other mothers. What differences can you see in how you mothered based in comparison to how you were mothered?
I think I mothered pretty similarly to my mom. My mom is still with me. Bless God. And I see a lot of me and her, a lot of her and me, to the point where, like, even the way she is with my kids, they see it. Oh, they're like, yeah, you guys are like, my parents they really didn't restrict me. They nurtured gifts in me. Their marriage became a distraction from me or from parenting at certain points. But I don't remember being like heavily judged for things or heavily pressured into things, even down to religion. I mean, when we went to church, it was like just because Black folks go to church, but it wasn't like a big old thing. You know what I'm saying? My mom took me to get my first tattoo when I was 18. My daughter turns 18 today. We're going to go get her tattoos this week sometime. One to start. She's got to warm up. And so, I think we're very similar. My mother was a graceful mother. My dad was is a curious, explorative father. And they both were spiritual. One more intellectual. My dad is like more into spiritual intellect. My mother more into the intuition. She's a Scorpio. And so I see a lot of them in how I parent. I don't, I've sometimes wondered, like, am I a good parent? Because I've always seen myself as guiding my kids. I've always seen myself as like not their owner, but their partner in this, and especially as they got older. So now they're 18, 16, and 14. So I had the blessing of being very similar. As my mom gets older, I see her similarities to her mother, though I think with each generation we get a little bit more open. My mother says, that she knew she was spiritually gifted, but she didn't trust it. She was afraid. And she's like, but I birthed a child who wasn't, And so I think with each generation we're getting, and now my kids, far earlier than I did, are tapping into their spirituality and their power in such a different way. So, I think with each generation we just get a little bit better.
How were you able to, you're an artist, and I want us to talk a little bit about your writing before we close. How were you able to do all the things that you're doing and still parent and still, I guess I should say, I had in my mind, I felt that parenting was such a huge undertaking that I might not be able to do some of the things I wanted to do if I were to become a parent. And I know, and I read something up that you wrote about being able to be free to be yourself and be a mother. How have you balanced that?
That was my sister. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
How was I able to balance it?
How were you able to balance? How were you able to be so fully? Because it sounds like your family actually helps to fuel you in the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think in the very beginning, no. In the very beginning, when they were really young, the pressures of motherhood hit me pretty hard, and they were only 18 months apart, and I loved it, but I had this like externalized voice in my head about perfection in motherhood that was really harmful. And I think a lot of that became undone when me and their father divorced. And I knew I had to show them. I had to show them who I was. I couldn't just tell them, and I couldn't just tell them who to be. I had to show them. And so my decision making changed after that. It wasn't just good enough for me to be a good mom to them. I had to show them what a full woman looked like, because I'm raising women. I knew that. And so I had to make choices to live like a full woman, which meant I had to be very clear with my kids that I am a artist and a writer and a creative being, and I'm exploring this. So they've really witnessed all of this. They've really been in, I didn't hide it. I didn't scurry away. They've watched me write books. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
The dogs.
It's the neighborhood.
They've watched me write books. Yeah, they've watched me write books. They've watched me start a podcast. They've watched me start a company. And so, when it came time for them to think about college, they weren't just like, it wasn't an automatic thing for them. They were like, well, do I want to start a business? Do I want to do this? And they knew they had all these options. I think the mistake we make and the tension we create is we try to make it separate. And they're not. They inform each other. Motherhood, if you allow it to expand your creativity. I've had to do things, you have to negotiate your time. There's a whole episode on Dead Black Mamas called Black Mama Creative, with amazing tips for mothers who are trying to be creative while being mothers. And I think the biggest mistake we make is thinking we have to choose between the two. It's really about how can you fold your family into that? How can you teach them that you're a writer and this is what you need and this is what you need? How can you share that? This is what mommy does. This is how mommy works. And sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they be like, you work a lot. You didn't. I'm like, but I love you a lot too. So we can work this out, And so I think if we allow it to, it can expand it. But I think the first instinct is that you have to choose, which is a very Western, white concept. Like, I can't have it all.
Yeah, that whole limitation. Yes. So tell me about your two most recent books. Murmurs of a Mad Woman and...
Murmurs was the book I wrote after my divorce several years ago. So at this point, it's actually getting old. But I love it because it's a book about what happens when an emotional bomb goes off in your life, the unexpected. Or things that we saw coming, but we didn't want to believe were coming. And it happens, it ruptures. And then what does the process look like from there? And for me, that was a book about establishing that I can finish a writing project and establish myself as a person capable of that kind of writing. Good Lord, there's just nature all around me. With Blood and Bahareke.
No,
go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you, how do you see, what differences, if you could name one or two differences in yourself from the time you wrote that book to who you are now, what are the two key growth areas that you can see from the book that you recently wrote to that one, and who you are and all that you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that book, I was still dealing with things on an emotional level. That book really deals with the emotion. Now I deal with most things through the spiritual level. And so that's a big piece. I think also in that one, I was also just afraid to say and really fully, I went pretty in, but I think I was still very careful to protect my ex in that book, to be cautious. And now I'm not. Like, it is what it is. Now I don't feel like I should have to filter things. And so I don't. So Blood and Bajareke is a completely different experience. For one, it breaks a lot of rules. Both of those books did. They were both unconventional. They're not written like books are normally written, even
Yeah,
down to
I
font
heard you.
choice. And yeah,
I heard you read.
go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I heard you read part of Blood and Bajareke, and I really
Mm-hmm.
love the power of the words, and I love the spiritual commitment that you
Mm-hmm.
demonstrated in writing that book. You said you woke up at 5 a.m. and you were able to write it in
Mm-hmm.
30 days. And
Mm-hmm.
it's poetry, and it's the words are really enlivened, and so tell us about
I
that book.
love that work. Yeah, I love that work. There's so much ritual and so much spiritual tech and ancestral data in that book. That's why we do the Hold Us Sacred event. So anybody who buys the book, your book is your ticket, and you get to be a part of the Hold Us Sacred events, where I have people like Sonia Renee Taylor, Ebony Janice, Achilles Richards, and some other people I've had on the podcast come on to like, let's really sit with this technology that this book is offering us all to tap into. Because it came from my ancestors, there's things in there that I still to this moment can't explain how they got in there.
Mm.
But I know that I have people from all walks of life that reach out to me. And it's like I use that book like a devotional. I would just open to a random page and let it speak to me. And then I could hear my ancestors, and like all these amazing things are happening because the book was meant to be a tool for spiritual tech and ancestral data, accessing ancestral data. And so it's very different than Murmurs of a Mad Woman, which was very emotional, right? This book is not is I mean, you may get emotional, but the book is about like unlocking and excavating this tech, an inner form of tech, not this masculine form of tech, but this feminine form of tech. And I absolutely adore it. I mean, there's a whole process behind it, but like it had to be hardcover. My ancestors are very loud when they want something a certain kind of way. They were very specific about how things had to be done. And I'm very proud of my team. That's a we. In addition to the ancestors, my team helped me follow that vision to a T, down to the altar boxes that they came in, everything. It was just my team. I was just so proud of all that work this year.
Yeah, I would love. I mean, I've maybe if you do the altar boxes again, I would love to see
Hmm.
them. I heard you talk about putting them together. So tell us, what do you have coming up that people might be able to tap into and connect with
Hmm.
you?
So we do have the books. The more you buy the books, again, you're joining the Hold a Sacred community, which is a great group of people that we meet up and we kind of break down this tech and this book. The Black of the Brain is always an ongoing cohort that meets every month to discuss um, decolonizing mental health, decolonizing education, so on and so forth. The next Hold a Sacred, I think, is November 5th with Den Black Mamas. So that's the next one that we have coming out. And a lot of our other stuff coming up are like, just different engagements we have with different universities and different private organizations. But you can always reach out to us at marleyio.com or theamonyee.com because there's always something fun coming down the pike. Now we're just kind of attracting the work we want and attracting the partners. So we're not super promotional, but also we will be doing kind of a rogue season of Shaping the Shift. I was not planning on doing another season of the podcast until January, but Spirit said otherwise. So we're doing a pretty intense season on character in the midst of chaos that will be dropping in a couple of weeks. So if you're not following Shaping the Shift, it's a good time to follow because those episodes will be dropping soon.
Okay, thank you so very much for your time,
My
Thea
pleasure. Thank
Monyee.
you. Your
Yes,
questions were amazing. So
thank you,
yummy.
thank you, Thea Monyee. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. Did I say it was free? It's totally free. You don't have to pay anything to get started. There are creation tools, and you can edit and trim the end. You can record. There's intro music that you can use. It has so many really cool features that I really needed as I was starting to podcast. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So go download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM and get started. Go ahead, download, get started. Let your voice be heard. Thank you so much for joining me for In the Center of Her Power podcast. I sincerely hope that you were fed with divine feminine soul food. Please like or subscribe or share the podcast. And until next time, shine.